You're listening to Sleepy Historian. It's late. The kind of late where the world outside your window has gone quiet. No cars, no voices, just the occasional sigh of wind against glass. Maybe there's snow on the ground where you are. Maybe not. But wherever you rest tonight, it is warm, safe, predictable. This story is not. Tonight, we go to a place where warmth is borrowed, not owned. Where safety is a memory, not a promise. Where time does not pass in hours, but in breaths. Each one a small victory against the cold that wants to still you forever. You wake before dawn, not because you chose to, but because your body knows. If you sleep too long, you may not wake at all. The air inside your shelter is still, thick with the scent of damp wool, wood smoke, and something older, the dry, metallic smell of deep cold. Your eyelashes are frozen together. You blink slowly, carefully peeling them apart like wet paper. Outside, the thermometer reads minus 60 degrees Celsius. Not a record. Not even unusual for this part of Siberia in mid-January. Just normal. And you are alone. Not metaphorically. Not poetically. Truly alone. No radio. No satellite phone. No nearby village. The nearest human being is over 200 kilometers away, across a landscape so vast and white it swallows sound, direction, and hope. You are here by accident, or perhaps by fate. A broken sled axle, a blizzard that erased the trail, a decision made in haste, now paid for in frost and silence. This is not an adventure. Adventures have beginnings and endings, heroes and triumphs. This is survival, and survival has no climax. Only duration, only endurance, only the slow, grinding weight of staying alive when every force around you suggests you should not be. Siberia is not cruel. It is indifferent. It does not hate you. It does not care whether you live or die. The wind blows because pressure systems shift. The snow falls because moisture meets cold air. The permafrost lies beneath your feet not as a prison, but as a fact, as unchangeable as gravity. And in that indifference lies the true terror. There is no malice to bargain with, no villain to outwit. Only physics, only weather, only time. People have lived here for millennia. The Evenki, the Yakuts, the Nenets, they built lives in this cold, not by conquering it, but by listening to it. They knew when to move, when to wait, when to burn precious fuel, when to let their bodies grow still. Their knowledge was not written in books, but in calloused hands, in the angle of a sled runner, in the way they wrapped fur around a child's face before stepping into the wind. But you are not one of them. You are an outsider, perhaps a traitor, a surveyor, a political exile sent eastward by imperial decree, or maybe just a traveler who misjudged the season. Whatever brought you here, you lack the deep, generational wisdom of those who belong to this land. You have maps, yes, but maps do not show how the snowdrifts shift overnight. You have matches, but matches do not help when your fingers won't bend enough to strike one. You have food, but food is useless if you lack the energy to chew it. And so you wait. Not for rescue. That word belongs to stories with happy endings. You wait for the cold to ease, for the sun to climb higher, for your body to find just enough strength to take one more step tomorrow. Waiting is not passive here. It is an act of will. Every minute you remain conscious, every time you force yourself to sip melted snow, every time you resist the urge to lie down and close your eyes, just for a moment, that is resistance. That is defiance. The nights are long. At this latitude in January, the sun never truly rises. It brushes the southern horizon for a few pale minutes around noon, casting long blue shadows that stretch like fingers across the ice. Then darkness returns. Not the cozy dark of your bedroom, but a total, star-strewn blackness so complete it feels solid. In that darkness, sound disappears. Footsteps make no noise in deep snow. Wind dies in the valleys. Even your own heartbeat seems muffled, as if the cold is pressing in from all sides, slowing everything down. You learn to listen differently, to the creak of your own joints, to the faint hiss of breath turning to ice on your scarf, to the distant groan of frozen rivers shifting under their own weight. These sounds become your companions. more reliable than memory, more honest than hope. Some do not make it, not because they were weak, not because they gave up, but because the margin for error is so thin. One wet sock, one missed meal, one night spent too far from the stove. That is all it takes. And when someone does not rise in the morning, there is no dramatic farewell. No last words carved into wood. Just an empty space on the bunk. A coat left hanging. A name that is no longer called. You carry them with you, though. In the way you check your knots twice. In the way you save the last piece of bread. In the way you whisper their name when the wind howls through the cracks in the wall. This story will not rush. There will be no sudden rescues. No miraculous discoveries. No villains to defeat. Only the slow passage of days measured in degrees, in calories, in heartbeats. If you drift off while listening, that is all right. The cold does not hurry. Neither will we. When you wake, the story will still be here. Still waiting, still enduring, still breathing in the endless white. So let your shoulders relax. Let your thoughts soften. Let the weight of the day fall away. Because out there in the heart of Siberia, someone is doing the same. Only they cannot afford to sleep. And yet they do. Just for a moment. Just long enough to dream of fire. You arrived in late autumn. Not winter. Not yet. The trees still held a few brittle leaves, and the rivers ran clear beneath thinning ice. It was cold, yes, but manageable. You wore your thickest coat, lined your boots with extra felt, and packed what you thought was enough food for 3 weeks. You told yourself you'd be back before the deep freeze set in. That was the first mistake, believing the land would wait for your schedule. Siberia does not keep human time. The first snow came earlier than expected, a dry, fine powder that settled like dust over the taiga. It wasn't heavy, but erased the trail markers you'd placed just days before. You didn't panic. Not then. You adjusted your route, followed the riverbank, trusted your compass. But the compass only tells direction, not depth, not danger. And the river, once a guide, soon became a thread. Its surface glazed with ice too thin to walk on, too wide to cross. You built your shelter near a stand of large trees, their branches offering slight windbreak. It was not an isba. Those take weeks to construct properly, but makeshift lean-to reinforced with packed snow and reindeer hides traded from a passing Evenki hunter weeks ago. You remembered his warning, when the cold comes, it doesn't knock. It walks in and sits down. You smiled at the time. Now you understand. The first true night below minus 40 degrees Celsius arrives without fanfare. No storm, no howling wind, just a stillness so complete it feels like the world has stopped breathing. You bank the fire carefully, birch logs saved for emergencies, because drywood is scarce this far north. The flames flicker low, casting long shadows that dance across the snow walls of your shelter. You eat a small portion of dried venison, chew slowly to conserve energy, and sip water warm just enough to melt the ice crystals forming at the rim of your cup. Your fingers ache, not sharply, just a dull, persistent throb, as if your bones are shrinking inside your skin. You flex them one by one, watching the joints move stiffly under layers of wool and leather. Frost clings to the inside of your mittens, brittle and white. You don't remove them, not even asleep. Sleep is different here. It doesn't come in waves. It creeps. One moment you're staring at the ceiling of your shelter, listening to the soft crackle of embers. The next, your thoughts have blurred into dreams of warmth, of standing by a stove in a village kitchen, steam rising from a pot of borscht, someone calling your name. Then you jerk awake, heart pounding, breath catching in your throat. Because in that half second between dream and waking, you forgot where you were. And forgetting is dangerous. You check the fire. Still glowing. Good. You check your feet. Toes still pink when you press them. Better. You check the door flap. Sealed tight against the wind. For now, outside, the temperature drops further. The air itself seems to crystallize, each breath pulling like glass through your lungs. You exhale slowly, watching your vapor hang in the air before vanishing. Not rising, not dispersing, just gone. Absorbed by the cold. You think about tomorrow. You need to gather more wood. But every step outside costs calories. Every minute exposed risks frost snip on your cheeks, your ears, the tip of your nose, places where blood flow is already reduced. You weigh the options: stay in, conserve heat, risk running out of fuel, or go out, gather wood, risk exposure. There is no right answer. Only choices with consequences you'll feel hours or days later. This is how survival begins. Not with drama, but with calculation. You decide to wait until midday, when the sun, if you can call it that, will brush the horizon and raise the temperature by 2 or 3 degrees. It won't feel warmer, but the ice on your eyelashes might soften enough to blink without pain. Small mercies matter now. As you lie back, you notice something new. The silence has weight. In cities, silence is the absence of noise. Here it is a presence. It presses against your eardrums. It fills the space between heartbeats. You realize you haven't heard another human voice in 11 days. 11 days of your own breath, your own footsteps, your own thoughts circling like wolves around a campfire. You speak aloud, just a word. Your own name. It sounds strange, foreign, as if someone else said it. You try again, louder. The sound doesn't carry. It dies within meters, swallowed by snow and stillness. You stop. Talking wastes moisture, and moisture is life. Your stomach growls, but you ignore it. Hunger is constant now, a low hum beneath everything else. You've learned not to feed it immediately. Let it sit. Let it remind you that you're still alive. Because when hunger stops, that's when you should worry. You close your eyes, not to sleep, just to rest them. Behind your lids, you see flashes: your mother stirring soup on a stove, the smell of rye bread, the sound of laughter in a crowded room. These memories are sharper now, clearer than they've been in years. The cold strips away distractions. What remains are the things that truly mattered. The warmth of hands holding yours, the sound of rain on a roof, the simple act of being seen by another person. You wonder if anyone knows you're missing. Probably not yet. You told no one your exact route. Too risky in these parts. Bandits, border patrols, suspicious officials. You learned early to travel quietly. So no one will come looking. Not for weeks. By then, the snow will be meters deep. Your tracks long erased. And yet, you do not despair. Not yet. Despair is a luxury for those who still believe rescue is possible. You are past that. You are in the phase of pure function. Eat, melt snow, tend fire, check extremities, breathe. Repeat. The fire pops softly. A log shifts. Embers glow like distant stars. You watch them. Count them. Let your mind drift among them. Somewhere, far to the south, people are drinking tea in heated rooms, complaining about the weather, planning weekend trips. You do not envy them. You simply note the distance, not in kilometers, but in layers of reality. Their world and yours no longer touch. You shift slightly, careful not to disturb the snow-packed insulation around your sleeping mat. Your hip aches from lying on frozen ground, even with reindeer hide beneath you. Pain is normal now. You catalog it. Left knee stiff, right shoulder numb from carrying the sled, lower back tight from hunching against the wind. None of it is urgent. All of it is permanent for now. You think about building a better shelter, a proper snow hut, like the Evenki taught you in passing. But the effort required, digging, shaping blocks, reinforcing walls, would burn through a day's worth of calories. And if you collapse halfway through, you'll be exposed with no energy to return to this lean-to. So you stay. You endure. The cold deepens. Your breath slows. And somewhere in the vast white silence, a single raven calls, once, twice, then falls quiet again. You listen, but you do not hope. Hope burns too brightly, and fire must be rationed. You knew the signs. Everyone who travels north learns them early. The numbness that feels like relief, the skin turning waxy white, the strange absence of pain where there should be burning cold. Frostbite doesn't announce itself with agony. It creeps in quietly, disguised as comfort. And comfort is the most dangerous illusion in deep winter. The first warning came 3 mornings ago. You were tightening the straps on your sled when you noticed your right thumb wouldn't bend fully. Not stiff, just distant, like it belonged to someone else. You flexed it again. Nothing. No pain, no resistance, just a soft, useless lump at the end of your hand. You rub it against your coat, blew warm air into your mittens, waited. After 10 minutes, sensation returned, tingling, then sharp pins and needles. You told yourself it was nothing, just poor circulation. You've been gripping the sled handle too tightly in the wind, but you didn't check your other fingers. That was the second mistake. Now, 2 days later, your left pinky stays cold, even by the fire. Not icy, just cool like stone left in shade. You press it with your good hand. The skin doesn't blanch, doesn't flush. It simply yields, soft and lifeless. You know what that means. Superficial frostbite. Stage 1. Reversible, if you act now. But acting requires resources you don't have. To rewarm properly, you need sustained heat. Warm, not hot. Water, dry cloths, time out of the cold. You have none of those. Your water supply is ice. Your cloths are damp from breath condensation. And stepping away from survival tasks, even for an hour, risks everything. So you do the only thing you can. You tuck the hand deeper into your armpit, let your body heat seep slowly into the deadened flesh, and hope. Hope is not a strategy, but it's all you have left. You ration your movements now. Every gesture must serve a purpose. Reaching for your cup, use your elbow to steady it first. Adjusting your hood, do it with your chin, not your hands. You've begun eating with your teeth more than your fingers, tearing strips of dried meat directly from the pack, letting snow melt on your tongue rather than fumbling with a spoon. Efficiency isn't about speed anymore. It's about conservation. And still, you underestimate the cold. Yesterday, you decided to check the snares you set near the riverbank. A foolish risk, but hunger had sharpened your judgment. You walked the half-kilometer in silence, boots crunching on wind-packed snow, eyes scanning for tracks, hare, fox, anything. The air was calm. Too calm. That should have warned you. Still air at minus 50 degrees Celsius means the cold has settled like a blanket, waiting. At the first snare, nothing. At the second, a broken twig, recent. Hope flickered. You crouched to inspect the ground, bare fingers brushing snow for prints. That's when it happened. Your knuckles touched a metal trigger wire. Instantly, the skin stuck, fused by moisture freezing on contact. You jerked back, tearing a thin layer of epidermis away. A small wound, barely bleeding. But in this cold, even a pinprick is a breach. You wrapped the hand in spare wool, tied it tight, kept walking. By the time you returned to shelter, your entire left hand throbbed. Not with pain, but with a deep, hollow ache, as if the bones inside were slowly turning to glass. You held it near the fire, but the heat barely penetrated. The fingers curled slightly, rigid like claws. You try to straighten them. They resisted. You say nothing aloud. There's no one to hear you. And speaking wastes warmth. Instead, you sit very still, watching the firelight play over your damaged hand. You think of the Evenki hunter again, how he never touched metal with bare skin in winter, how he carried a small bone hook to adjust traps, how he laughed when you showed him your steel knife. Cold loves metal, he'd said. It will kiss you, and you won't feel it until your flesh says goodbye. You should have listened. Now, every task takes longer. Lacing boots requires both hands working together, one guiding, the other obeying slowly, clumsily. Melting snow means balancing the pot with your knees while stirring with your good hand. Even breathing feels heavier, as if your chest must work harder to pull air through frozen nostrils. Worst of all is the silence inside your own body. Before, you felt the wind on your face, the ache in your feet, the burn in your lungs after exertion. Now, whole sections of you are quiet, numb, absent. It's as if parts of you have already left, retreating inward to preserve the core. You wonder how much you can lose before you're no longer whole enough to survive. You check your rations again. Less than you remembered. The venison is nearly gone. The hardtack biscuits, meant to last weeks, are crumbling faster than expected, brittle from repeated thawing and refreezing in your pack. You count them. 7 pieces left. At 1 per day, that's just over a week. But you've already started skipping meals on low-activity days, trying to stretch them. Hunger gnaws, but you've learned to let it sit like a familiar guest. The real danger isn't hunger. It's the weakness that follows. Weakness means slower reactions. Slower reactions mean mistakes. Mistakes mean death. You consider hunting again. But without functional fingers, setting snares is nearly impossible, and tracking requires patience you no longer have. Yesterday, you saw wolf tracks circling your shelter at a distance. Not close enough to threaten, but close enough to watch. They know. Animals always know when something is weakening. Night falls early. You bank the fire with the last of your birch logs. Tomorrow, you'll burn larch, less efficient, smokier, but it's all you have. You wrap your bad hand in an extra layer of hide, tuck it into your coat, and lie down. Sleep comes in fragments. You drift, then jerk awake when your body forgets to shiver. Shivering is good. Shivering means you're still fighting. When it stops, that's when you're in trouble. In one half dream, you're back in a bathhouse, steam rising, wooden benches warm under your palms, someone pouring water over hot stones. The heat soaks into your bones, melting the ice in your joints. You sigh, you smile, then you open your eyes. Darkness, cold, the faint scent of smoke and sweat. Your hand throbs dully. You flex it once. 2 fingers move. 3 do not. You close your eyes again. Not a dream this time, just a wait. Because morning will come, and with it, another day of choosing what to lose next. The wind begins at dusk, not with a roar, but with a whisper, a faint hiss through the larch branches like dry leaves dragged across stone. You hear it before you feel it. Your body has learned to listen that way, not with ears alone, but with skin, with breath, with the tension in your shoulders. You pause while mending a tear in your coat and look up. The sky, already bruised with twilight, has turned a deeper gray along the western ridge. Not cloud, not smoke, just pressure gathering. You know what's coming. You've heard stories from trappers, from exiles, from old women in remote villages who speak of Buran, the Siberian blizzard that doesn't just fall, but swallows. It erases trails, buries sleds, fills lungs with ice crystals. It doesn't last hours. It lasts days. And it's here. You move quickly, but not frantically. Panic wastes heat. You secure the door flap with extra sinew ties, pile snow against the base to seal gaps, drag your remaining firewood inside. Every motion is deliberate. Every second counts. Outside, the wind rises, not steadily, but in pulses like something testing the edges of your shelter. By full dark, the storm owns the world. Snow doesn't fall so much as fly sideways, driven by gusts that shake the walls of your lean-to. The temperature drops further, 55 degrees C, perhaps minus 60 degrees Celsius. You don't check the thermometer. There's no point. At this cold, numbers stop meaning anything. What matters is whether your breath still fogs, whether your fingers still twitch when you command them, whether the fire still glows beneath its blanket of ash. You feed it one small log, just enough to keep embers alive. Burning more would be reckless. Fuel is finite, and the storm shows no sign of easing. Silence returns, but it's a different silence now. Not the stillness of calm cold, but the muffled hush of snow devouring sound. Even the wind seems quieter, as if it's speaking only to itself. You sit with your back against the snow wall, knees drawn to your chest, bad hand tucked under your armpit. Your good hand rests on your knee, counting slow breaths. Into 3 out 2 3. Rhythm keeps you present. Without it, your mind drifts toward the edge, the place where sleep and surrender blur. You've heard of men who simply walked out into storms like this, not because they wanted to die, but because the cold made thinking too heavy. They'd say later, if they lived, that it felt peaceful, like lying down in a soft bed. You understand that now. The temptation isn't despair. It's relief. But you stay, because staying is the only thing left to do. Hours pass, or minutes. Time stretches and folds in the dark. You check your supplies again. Not because you've forgotten, but because movement fights lethargy. The water pot is half full of melted snow. Good. You sip sparingly. Dehydration worsens frostbite, slows healing, dulls judgment. You eat one of the last hardtack biscuits, chewing slowly, letting saliva soften it before swallowing. Calories are precious. Waste is death. Outside, the wind shifts. Now it howls directly against your door flap, flinging snow through the smallest cracks. Ice forms instantly on the inner walls. feathery patterns spreading like veins across the packed snow. You watch them grow. Beautiful in a terrible way. Like lace made by ghosts. You think about the trail markers you placed weeks ago, sticks tied with cloth, stones arranged in arrows. Gone now, buried under meters of fresh snow. Even if the storm stopped tomorrow, you wouldn't find your way back. The land has reset itself. Blank. Impartial. Waiting. A decision forms in your mind. Not sudden. Not dramatic. Just a slow settling, like sediment in still water. Do you stay in the shelter and wait out the storm? Or do you try to move before your supplies run out? Stay means safety for now. But if the storm lasts 5 days, 6, you'll burn your last wood by day 3. After that, you'll have only body heat. And body heat alone won't hold off minus 60 degrees Celsius for long. Moving means exposure. In whiteout conditions, you could walk in circles and never know it. One wrong step into a snow-hidden ravine, one slip on river ice, and it's over. But if you head east toward the old postal route, you might reach a way station. Abandoned, perhaps, but even an empty cabin offers better shelter than this lean-to. The choice costs energy just to consider. You weigh it against your reserves. Your hand is worsening, 2 fingers now permanently curled. Your legs ache from cold deep in the muscle. Your thoughts come slower, wrapped in fog. You're not at your best, but you may never be again. You decide to wait one more day, not out of hope, out of calculation. If the storm breaks by noon tomorrow, you'll pack what you can carry and go. If not, you'll dig deeper into the snow, reinforce the walls, stretch your rations to half portions. Survival isn't about winning. It's about delaying loss. You banked a fire one last time. Embers glow like dying stars. You pull your fur hood lower, tuck your chin into your chest, and close your eyes. Not to sleep, but to rest within waking. Your breath slows. The wind moans. Snow piles higher against the door. Somewhere out there, the world continues. Trains run. Markets open. Children laugh in warm rooms. Here, there's only this. The weight of cold, the sound of wind, the fragile warmth of a single human body holding back the endless white. And you, still breathing, still choosing, still here. You no longer mark the days. Not with notches on wood, not with stones in a pouch, not even in your mind. The sun, if you can still call it that, brushes the southern horizon for less than an hour each noon, casting a weak, blue-tinged light that does nothing to warm the air or lift the weight from your chest. It rises just enough to remind you that time is passing, then sinks again into twilight, as if ashamed of its own weakness. Without true daylight, your body forgets rhythm. Sleep comes in fragments, 20 minutes here, an hour there, never deep, never restful. You drift into half-dreams where you're walking through a snowfield that never ends, or sitting at a table with people whose faces you almost recognize. Then a shiver pulls you back, or the fire crackles too loudly, or your bad hand throbs with that dull, glassy ache. You wake often to check the door, not because you expect anything, but because checking is something to do, something that proves you're still alert, still present, still fighting. The storm has passed, but the cold remains. Minus 58 degrees Celsius this morning. You check the thermometer out of habit, though the number means little now. What matters is how your breath sounds when you exhale, thin and sharp, like tearing paper. What matters is whether your good hand still trembles when you lift the water pot. What matters is the silence between heartbeats, growing longer each day. You speak less now, not just because no one listens, but because sound feels wasteful. Each word pulls moisture from your throat. Each syllable burns calories you can't spare. So you keep your thoughts inside, where they echo in the hollow spaces between ribs, between breaths, between the slow ticks of your pulse. But sometimes you whisper, just to hear a human voice, even if it's your own. Water, you say, watching your lips move in the frost-rimmed mirror of your shelter wall. The word hangs in the air, then vanishes. Fire, east. The words are anchors. They tether you to purpose. Without them, you might float away into the white. You've begun counting things. Not days. Smaller things. Safer things. You count your breaths while melting snow. 1, 2, 3, until the ice softens. You count the logs left, 12. Enough for 6 nights if you burn one every other evening. You count your remaining biscuits. 5. You ration them to a quarter per day now, a sliver the size of your thumbnail. You chew it for 10 minutes, letting saliva dissolve it slowly, savoring the ghost of flour and salt. Hunger is no longer a sensation. It's a companion. It walks beside you when you check the snares, still empty. It sits with you by the fire, burning low. It whispers when you close your eyes, just lie down, just rest, no one will know. You've learned not to argue with it. You simply acknowledge its presence and carry on. Your body is changing, not dramatically, not in ways that would shock an outsider, but you feel it in the small withdrawals. Your shoulders hunch slightly forward, as if protecting your core. Your steps are shorter, lighter, less energy spent lifting your feet. Your voice, when you use it, is thinner, reedy. Even your thoughts move slower, like syrup in winter. This is not weakness. This is adaptation. Your body is shedding everything non-essential. Muscle, fat, emotion, memory. Only the bare machinery of survival remains. Lungs that pull air, heart that pumps blood, brain that says breathe, melt snow, check fire, breathe again. You find yourself staring at your hands for long stretches. The bad one is worse. 3 fingers now refuse to straighten. The skin is pale, waxy, cool to the touch. No pain. That's the worst part. Pain will mean nerves still work. This silence means tissue is dying. You don't panic. You wrap it tighter, tuck it deeper into your coat, and adjust your movements to rely only on your right hand. It's enough. For now, you think less about rescue. Not because you've given up, but because the idea has lost meaning. Rescue implies a world that still sees you as worth saving. Out here, you are becoming invisible, not just to others, but to yourself. Your name feels distant. Your past feels like someone else's story. All that remains is this body, this breath, this moment. And yet, you persist, because persistence is all you have left. You've started marking time in other ways. By the position of Orion in the night sky, by the depth of frost on the shelter wall, by how long it takes your breath to fog the air before vanishing. These are your clocks now. Imprecise, unreliable, but yours. Last night, you dreamed of rain. Not snow, not ice. Warm, heavy rain falling on cobblestones, the smell of wet earth, the sound of gutters overflowing. You stood barefoot in it, letting the water run between your toes, up your legs, over your face. You opened your mouth and drank from the sky. When you woke, your cheeks were wet. Not from tears, from melted frost. Your own breath had condensed on your hood and dripped down. But for a moment, you let yourself believe it was rain. That's how thin the line has become. Between memory and hallucination. Between hope and delusion. Between staying alive and merely delaying the inevitable. You don't fight it. You let the dream linger as you melt snow for water. Let the phantom warmth wrap around your shoulders as you feed a sliver of wood to the fire. Let the sound of rain fill your ears as the wind moans through the trees outside. Because if the mind must bend to survive, so be it. As long as the body keeps breathing, as long as the fire keeps glowing, as long as you wake when the weak sun touches the horizon, even if you're not sure why. You are here, still here, and in this endless white, that is enough. You begin to speak aloud again, not in full sentences, not at first, just fragments. A name, a place, a word from a song half remembered. Krasnoyarsk, mother's bread, the river bends left. It starts as habit, something to fill the silence that presses against your eardrums like water. But soon it becomes necessity, because without sound, you fear you'll forget what a human voice sounds like. And if you forget that, how will you know you're still one? At first, you speak only when tending the fire or melting snow, tasks that require focus and thus offer cover for the oddity of your own voice. But gradually, the words spill into idle moments. When you sit with your back against the wall, watching frost bloom across the ceiling. When you chew your sliver of biscuit, slow and methodical. When you wake in the false dawn and find your thoughts tangled in dreams you can't quite release. You tell yourself stories. Not grand tales. Small ones. True ones. You recount the day you bought your boots in Irkutsk. The cobbler's hands, gnarled but steady, tapping the sole with a hammer. You describe the taste of sour cream on rye bread at a roadside in near Lake Baikal. You replay conversations. A trader arguing over fur prices. A child laughing as snow fell on her tongue. An old woman humming while stirring stew. These memories are not escapes. They are lifelines. Each detail anchors you to a world where warmth exists, where voices overlap, where touch doesn't mean pain. You cling to them not because they comfort you, but because they prove you once belonged somewhere, that you were seen, that you mattered enough to be remembered, if only by yourself. Sometimes you invent dialogue. You imagine someone sitting across from you by the fire, a fellow traveler, a guide, even a ghost. You ask them questions. They answer in your own voice, but softer, calmer, as if speaking from a place untouched by cold. How much longer? You ask. As long as it takes, they reply. What if I can't? You already have. You know it's not real, but the ritual matters. The act of asking, of listening, of pretending, just for a moment, that you're not alone in this white void. Your voice grows hoarse from disuse. You ration speech like food, only what's necessary. But necessity has expanded. Now, saying your own name each morning feels essential. It reminds you who you are fighting for, even if that who is barely more than breath and bone. You've started writing. Not letters. Paper would freeze and crack, but words carved into the wooden handle of your knife with the tip of a nail. Short phrases. Dates, or what you guess are dates. Observations. Cold deeper today. Fire low. Wood 9. Left hand stiff. No feeling past knuckle. Dreamt of apples. The carvings are clumsy. Your good hand shakes now, especially in the mornings. But the act of pressing metal into wood is proof. You are still here. Still thinking. Still marking time, however imperfectly. One night, you speak to the fire. Not metaphorically. Directly. As if it were a companion who has shared your shelter through the worst nights. You've kept me, you say, voice rough. Don't leave me now. The flames flicker. No brighter, no dimmer. But you take it as agreement. You feed it a splinter of larch. Watch the embers glow red, then orange, then fade back to gray. You count the colors like blessings. Sleep brings voices too. Not your own. Others. Your sister calling you in from the garden. A comrade shouting your name during a summer march. A stranger offering tea at a crossroads. In dreams, these voices are clear, warm, immediate. You reach for them. Always, you wake just as your fingers brush theirs. The disappointment is sharper than hunger. But you don't stop dreaming, because even false connection is better than none. You've noticed your thoughts looping. The same worries, the same memories, the same calculations. If I burn 1 log per night, I have 9 nights left. If I eat 1/4 biscuit per day, I have 20 days of food. If I walk east at 2 kilometers per hour, I might reach the postal route in 5 days. If I don't fall, if I don't lose the trail, if the cold doesn't take my legs. The loops aren't madness. They're maintenance. Like checking knots. Like testing ice before stepping. Your mind circles these thoughts to keep them sharp, ready. Should the moment come to act, you won't waste time deciding. You'll already know the numbers. The risks. The cost. Sometimes you laugh. A dry, quiet sound, more breath than voice. It startles you each time. You haven't laughed in months, maybe years, but something absurd will surface. A memory of a dog wearing a hat, a merchant's exaggerated bow, the way snow once stuck to your mustache like cotton, and suddenly, your chest loosens. You let the laugh come, not because it's joyful, but because it's human, and humanity, however frayed, must be preserved. You talk to your body now, too. To your feet when they ache. Almost done. Just a little longer. To your stomach when it growls. I know. Soon. To your bad hand. Rest now. I'll carry us both. This isn't delusion. It's care. The last form of care you can offer yourself. Outside, the wind rises again. Not a storm, just the usual sigh through the trees. You listen to it as you would a conversation. It tells you nothing, but you listen anyway. Because silence, unbroken, is heavier than cold. And so you speak to ghosts, to fire, to frost, to yourself, not to be heard, but to remember that you still can. You begin to write letters. Not on paper, there is none left, and what little you had froze brittle weeks ago, but in your mind. You compose them slowly, carefully, as if addressing someone who will one day hold your words in their hands, trace the lines with their fingers, feel the weight of your silence between the sentences. The first is to your sister. You imagine her sitting by a stove in the village kitchen, steam rising from a pot of cabbage soup, a shawl draped over her shoulders. She's older now. How much, you can't say. Time is blurred. But in your letter, she's exactly as you remember. Eyes sharp with kindness, hands always busy, voice low and steady like river stones worn smooth. Dear Anya, you begin, though you speak no sound aloud. It is cold here, colder than we ever knew in winter back home. But I am well. The fire holds. The food lasts. Do not worry. You pause, because of course you would worry. And of course you are not well. But the lie feels necessary, not for her, but for you, to pretend, even in thought, that survival is orderly. That you are still the brother who left, not this hollowed-out version shaped by frost and waiting. You tell her small things. That the large trees stand straight, even in deep snow. That the stars here are brighter than anywhere you've seen. That you remember the taste of her blackberry jam, thick and sweet, spread on fresh bread. You do not mention your hand, or the dreams where you forget her face, or the way your breath sometimes catches, thin and shallow, as if your lungs are learning to stop. You end with, I will return when the rivers run free again. You know it may not be true, but hope, even false, is a kind of fuel. The second letter is to no one, or perhaps to everyone you've ever known. You write it in fragments, scattered across hours. I'm still here. The cold does not win today. If you find a shelter, know I tried. These are not meant to be read. They are markers, like stones placed along a trail, so you don't lose yourself completely. You whisper them into the walls, press them into the snow with your boot, breathe them into the wind. Let the land carry them, even if no human ear ever does. Sometimes you write to the dead, a comrade lost on the road to Omsk, a childhood friend who drowned in spring thaw, your father, whose cough never faded before the frost took him. You tell them what they missed, what you've seen, what you've endured. You would not believe the silence here. You say to your father, no birds, no bells, just wind and breath. But I remember your stories by the hearth. They keep me warm. You do not ask why they left you. You do not blame them for being gone. You simply speak as if they sit beside you in the dim light, nodding quietly, understanding without needing to reply. Writing becomes ritual. Each morning, after checking the fire and melting snow, you sit with your knees drawn up and compose one letter. It takes time. Your thoughts move slower now, words harder to find. But the act itself is grounding. It says, I'm still a person. I have people. I have a past worth remembering. You never send them. There is no post, no messenger, no path out. The letters live only in your mind, then dissolve like breath in the cold. And yet, you write them anyway, because sending isn't the point. Witnessing is. You imagine someone finding your body months from now. Perhaps a trapper, perhaps a surveyor. They'll see your shelter, your empty pot, your knife with its carved handle. They won't know your name. But if they look closely, they might feel it. The weight of all the words you never spoke aloud, all the love you carried through the white. That is enough. One night, you write a letter to yourself. Not the self you are now, the gaunt, slow-moving figure wrapped in layers of wool and silence, but the one who set out last autumn, full of plans, confident in maps and muscle, unaware of how thin the line is between traveler and ghost. You did not know, you write. No one does until they're here. But you chose to go, and I choose to stay. So we're the same. You fold the letter in your mind and tuck it into your coat, near your heart. Not as a reminder of who you were, but as proof that you still care enough to speak kindly to yourself. Your handwriting, if it existed, would be shaky. But your intent is clear. You also write to the future, to the version of you who might walk out of this winter, blinking in weak spring sun, boots broken, beard matted with ice. You tell that self, don't rush to forget. The cold taught you something. Listen to it, even when you're warm again. And to the version who doesn't make it, you lasted longer than most would have. That matters. You never question whether these letters are sane. Sanity, out here, is not about logic. It's about continuity. About stitching moments together with thread made of memory, regret, love, and stubbornness. Letters, real or imagined, are stitches. Sometimes you recite them aloud, softly, evenly, as if reading from a book by lamplight. Your voice cracks, but you don't stop. The sound fills the shelter, pushes back the silence just enough to keep the edges of your mind from fraying further. When you finish, you sit in the quiet again. But it's different now. Lighter, as if the air holds your words like embers, faint but glowing. Outside, the wind shifts. Snow falls softly, covering old tracks, smoothing the land into blankness once more. You watch it through a crack in the wall, and you think, let it bury everything. I have already sent what needed to be said, not in ink, but in endurance, in breath, in the simple, unbroken act of staying long enough to write another letter tomorrow. The wood is running out, not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, quietly like breath leaving a room. You counted 12 logs after the storm, then 11, 9, 7. Now only 5 remain, small pieces, mostly larch, split unevenly, their bark brittle with age. You handle them as if they were coins of pure gold, turning each one in your good hand before deciding whether tonight merits its sacrifice. You've begun burning other things. A broken sled runner, shaved into splinters. A spare leather strap, cut into strips and dry by the fire until it smolders rather than flames. Even dry moss scraped from beneath snowdrifts, though it produces more smoke than heat and leave your eyes stinging for hours. Every scrap must serve. Nothing is waste anymore, not even silence. Melting snow for water now takes longer. Without strong flame, the ice softens slowly, reluctantly. You sit beside the pot for hours, feeding it tiny twigs, blowing gently on embers to coax warmth from ash. Your breath fogs the air, then freezes on your scarf, adding another layer of ice to the crust already there. You don't brush it off. Movement costs heat, and heat is life. You've learned to melt snow in stages. First, pack it loosely in the pot, never dense, or it insulates itself and won't melt. Then place it near, not over, the coals. Let radiant heat do the work. Stir with a bone shard when the edges soften. Wait, watch, breathe. It's a ritual now, not a chore. Because while you melt snow, you're doing something. Staying present. Fighting the slow pull of lethargy that whispers. Lie down. Close your eyes. The cold will take you gently. You resist. Not with strength, that's long gone, but with routine. With repetition. With the quiet discipline of watching ice become water, drop by drop. Your body has adjusted to less heat. You no longer shiver constantly. Not because you're warmer, but because your metabolism has slowed to conserve energy. Your heart beats slower. Your thoughts move through syrup. Even blinking feels deliberate. This is not recovery. It's retreat. Your core is pulling inward, protecting what little remains. You notice it in small ways. Your urine is dark, scant. Dehydration, despite your efforts. Your skin cracks at the corners of your mouth, but you don't lick it. The moisture loss isn't worth the momentary relief. Your beard is stiff with ice, fused to your scarf, and you've stopped trying to comb it free. It's part of you now, like the numbness in your fingers. You ration fire like breath. Some nights, you burn nothing. You sit in total darkness, wrapped in every layer you own, knees to chest, chin tucked low, breathing shallowly to retain warmth. On those nights, time stretches thin. You count your ribs with your good hand. Feel your pulse in your neck. Listen to the wind sketch patterns in the snow outside. You survive, but survival isn't living. It's waiting with your eyes open. You've started reusing ashes. After a fire dies, you sift the warmest embers into a hide pouch, tuck it against your abdomen, and let the residual heat seep into your core through the night. In the morning, the pouch is cold, the embers gray dust. But for a few hours, it helped. Every calorie saved is a minute gained. You eat standing now, not because you prefer it, but because sitting makes it harder to rise again. Your legs stiffen within minutes. So you chew your quarter biscuit upright, leaning against the wall, eyes half closed, letting gravity do the least possible work. Sleep is riskier without fire, not just from cold, but from dreams. In deep cold, dreams feel realer, warmer, more inviting. Last week, you dreamed you were walking into a bathhouse, steam curling around wooden beams, towels hanging warm on hooks. You reached for one, felt its softness, smelled soap and cedar. You woke with your hand outstretched, fingers brushing snow. For a moment, you didn't know which world was real. That frightens you more than frostbite, more than hunger. Because if you can't tell dream from waking, you might walk out into the white believing it's a road home. So you keep the fire alive when you can, even if it's just a coal the size of your thumb. Even if it gives no light, only the faintest promise of warmth. You watch it, tend it, whisper to it, stay with me. And sometimes it does. You've begun measuring time and fuel. Not days, not sunrises, but logs. 2 logs until I must decide. 1 log until I dig deeper. No logs, then what? The question hangs in the air, heavier than smoke. You've considered burning your shelter. Just a wall. Just enough to last one more night. But the snow walls insulate you from the wind. Without them, minus 60 degrees Celsius would claim you in hours. So you leave them standing, even as your fingers grow clumsier, your thoughts duller, your breath shallower. You check your bad hand daily. The skin is darker now, mottled purple at the fingertips, waxy white above. No pain, no sensation, just dead weight. You wrap it in extra layers, not to heal it, but to keep it from freezing further and cracking open. Infection would be a death sentence here. You have no medicine, no clean cloth beyond what you wear. So you protect it like a relic, a reminder of what you've already lost. Outside, the world remains unchanged. Snow falls softly. Wind sighs through trees. The weak sun brushes the horizon and retreats. No sign of rescue. No sign of spring. Just the endless cycle of cold, stillness, and waiting. And yet, you melt snow. You feed the fire. You breathe. Because as long as you do, you are not gone. Not yet. You check your supplies again. Not because you've forgotten what remains. Every item is etched into your mind like scripture, but because the act itself is a tether. A way to say, I am still here. I am still managing. I have not yet surrendered. It begins each morning before you even rise. Lying on your mat of reindeer hide and packed moss, you run through the inventory in your head, slow and methodical, as if reciting a prayer. Water pot, half full, ice crystals forming at the rim. Good, means it's cold enough to store. Firewood, for logs. 1 split into kindling. Ash pouch empty. Food, for biscuit quarters. Venison gone. Lichen stash untouched. Too bitter, too hard to digest without fat. Knife, sharp. Handle carved with dates, names, warnings. Boots, left sole cracked. Right heel worn thin. Both stiff with frost. Hands, right functional though slow. Left, 3 fingers dead. 2 barely move. You do not speak these aloud. Not yet. But you feel them in your chest, like beads on a rosary. Each item accounted for. Each loss acknowledged. Then you rise. Slowly, carefully. Because standing too fast makes the world tilt, your vision blur, your breath catch in your throat. You brace one hand against the snow wall, let your legs remember their purpose, and wait for the dizziness to pass. It always does, eventually. Now, the physical check. You lift the water pot, lighter than yesterday. You scrape ice from the rim with your knife, add fresh snow, set it near the hearth. You count the logs again. Yes, 4. You touch each one, testing for dryness, for cracks, for hidden rot. 1 log feels damp at the core. You set it aside to dry by your body heat during the day. Waste nothing. You open the food sack. The leather is stiff, brittle at the folds. Inside, the last 4 biscuit quarters lie wrapped in oiled cloth. You unwrap one corner, inspect the edges for mold. None. Cold preserves even as it starves. You rewrap it carefully, tie the cord tight. The motion takes effort. Your good hand trembles slightly. You pause, let it rest on your knee, Breathe until the shaking stops. You check your boots. Kneeling is harder now, so you sit and pull one close. The left sole has split along the seam, glue long frozen and failed. You press the edges together, consider stitching it with sinew, but your fingers won't manage the needle. Instead, you wrap it tightly with a strip of spare hide, knotting it with your teeth. It won't hold forever, but it might hold today. Your coat next. Fur lining matted with frost. Outer wool stiff with dried sweat and ice. You brush it lightly. No vigorous movement, no wasted energy, but enough to loosen the surface crystals. You check seams, pockets, hood ties. All intact. Good. Fabric is shelter. Shelter is life. You check your knife. Draw it slowly from its sheath. The blade gleams faintly in the dim light. Still sharp, still useful. You run your thumb along the edge. Carefully, cuts don't heal here. Then you trace the carvings on the handle. January 12th. Fire low. Anya. I remember. You do not add to it today. No new words feel necessary. Just the old ones, worn smooth by touch. You check your body. Not with urgency, but with detached attention, like a farmer inspecting tools before winter. Feet, toes still pink when pressed. Ankles swollen slightly from cold, but no open sores. Legs, muscle loss evident, but strength enough to stand, to walk short distances. Torso, ribs more pronounced, but breathing steady. Face, cheeks chapped, nose red, but no frost nip. Eyelashes still freeze shut each morning. Annoying, but not dangerous. Hands, as before. The left is a burden now, not a tool. You tuck it into your coat, out of the way. This self-inventory takes 20 minutes. Longer than it should. But time is not scarce. Only energy is. And this ritual costs little. Just presence. Just attention. You've begun checking things that can't be measured. Am I thinking clearly? You recall the date. You remember your sister's name. Good. Am I still choosing or just reacting? You chose to melt snow this morning instead of waiting. You chose to wrap the boot. Choice remains. Do I still care whether I wake tomorrow? Yes. Faintly. But yes. These are not questions with answers. They're compass points. Ways to ensure you haven't drifted too far into the numbness that precedes surrender. Sometimes you check the same thing twice. Did you really count 4 logs? You count again. Yes. 4. Is the water pot truly half full? You peer inside. Yes. Was that a dream? Or did you already eat today's ration? You press your stomach. Empty. Good. You haven't eaten. Repetition isn't madness. It's verification. In a world where error means death, double-checking is wisdom. You've started leaving markers. A stone placed beside the water pot means checked. A specific knot in your food sack means ration intact. A twig laid across the knife sheath means blade ready. These are silent signals to your future self. The one who might wake confused, disoriented, unsure if hours or days have passed. They say, you were here. You tended things. Continue. At noon, you check again. Not everything, just the essentials. Water level, fire readiness, boot wrap. The sun, if it can be called that, brushes the southern horizon for 17 minutes. You watch it through a crack in the wall. No warmth comes, but the pale blue light reminds you the world still turns. Even here, even now, you use the light to inspect your left hand more closely. The discoloration has spread up to the second knuckle. The skin feels like wax, cool, smooth, unyielding. You press it. No response. You flex what remains of your will into it. Nothing is no longer yours. Just wait. Just risk. You rewrap it tighter. Not to heal. To contain. Evening comes early. You check once more before banking the fire. Logs. 3. You burn a sliver tonight. Water. Refilled. Food. Untouched. Body. Still present. You sit back. Breathe. Let the rhythm of inventory settle into your bones. Because tomorrow, you'll do it all again. And the day after that. Until there is nothing left to check. Or until the checking keeps you alive long enough for the cold to relent. Either way, you'll know you tried. Not with heroics, but with repetition, with attention, with the quiet, unbroken discipline of counting what remains, and caring enough to do it again tomorrow. It comes just after false dusk. Not a chorus, not a pack, just one long, low howl, drawn out like a thread pulled taut across the silence. It rises from the ridge to the east, carries clean and cold through the still air, and fades into the taiga without echo. You hear it before you register it. Your body reacts first, spine straightens, breath catches, ears strain toward the sound. Only then does your mind catch up. Wolf, not fear, not yet, but awareness. You set down the water pot, rise slowly, carefully to your knees. Press your ear to the shelter wall, listening. The wind has died. Snow lies undisturbed. The world holds its breath. Silence returns. But it's different now. Thinner. Watched. You've seen tracks before. Light impressions in the snow, circling your shelter at a distance. Never close enough to threaten. Never far enough to ignore. You assumed they belonged to a lone scout, a young male testing boundaries, curious but cautious. Wolves know better than to attack a human who still moves with purpose. They wait for weakness, for stillness, for the moment when breath stops being steam and becomes frost on lips. But this howl wasn't curiosity. It was announcement. You don't mistake it for rescue. You don't imagine it as omen. It is simply fact. Another living thing shares this white void, and it knows you're here. You check your knife, not because you'll fight. It would be futile, but because holding it reminds you that you're not prey yet. Your eyes still open. Your hands still grip. Your fire still smolders beneath its ash blanket. You are diminished, yes, but not gone. You listen for a second howl. None comes. That worries you more. A single call could mean many things. A signal to kin, a claim of territory, a response to the moon you can't see through cloud. But the absence of reply suggests solitude. A lone wolf. Hungry. Patient. Like you. You think of stories told in villages, of wolves digging through snow to reach buried travelers, of eyes glowing in the dark beyond the firelight, of howls that mimic human cries to lure the lost. You dismiss them. Superstition. The wolf doesn't need tricks. It has time, and time favors the cold. You add no wood to the fire, not even a splinter. Light draws attention, and you have nothing to defend. Better to stay dark. Better to stay still. Instead, you sit very quietly back against the wall, good hand resting on your knee, bad hand tucked away. You slow your breathing. Shallow, silent inhales, slow, controlled exhales. You become part of the shelter, part of the snow, part of the waiting. Minutes pass, then an hour. The cold deepens. Your toes ache, not sharply, but with that familiar dull throb that means circulation is thinning. You shift slightly, just enough to keep blood moving, but no more. Movement makes noise. Noise invites attention. You wonder if it's watching. Not crouched in the trees, not pacing the perimeter, but standing on a ridge, ears pricked, nose testing the wind, eyes reflecting starlight. Does it see your faint smoke? Smell your breath? Hear the soft crackle of your joints as you sit? You imagine its thoughts. Not malice, not hunger as you know it, just necessity. The same necessity that drives you to melt snow, to ration biscuits, to wrap your dead fingers in wool. Survival is not moral. It simply is. And in this land, both of you are doing it badly. You feel no hatred toward the wolf. Only kinship. Two creatures alone in the white, each carrying their own kind of hunger, each marking time until the world softens again or ends. You recall a trapper saying, "The wolf doesn't hate the hare. It only needs to eat." You are not hare, but you are fragile. And fragility, in deep winter, is indistinguishable from prey. Still, you do not prepare to flee. Fleeing is death. In this cold, exertion burns reserves you cannot replace. Running would leave a trail of heat, breath, panic, gifts to a hunter. Better to stay, to endure, to let the wolf decide you're not worth the risk. You've heard they rarely attack unless desperate, and you are not easy prey. Not yet. Your fire may be low, but it is fire. Your posture may be weak, but you still rise each morning. Your voice may be hoarse, but you still whisper your sister's name. These are signals, even if unseen, that you are not ready to lie down. The night stretches. No second howl comes. But you keep listening, because now every silence has shape. Every gust of wind carries meaning. Every shadow beyond the shelter wall might hold eyes. You think less about rescue, more about presence. If the wolf comes closer, you will not scream. You will not beg. You will sit by your fire, knife in hand, and meet its gaze with the quiet dignity of one who has already faced worse than teeth. But it doesn't come. By true dark, you accept it has moved on, or is waiting. Either way, you must sleep. You bank the embers one last time, tuck your hands into your coat, and lie down. Your dreams are different tonight. Not of warmth, not of home, but of running through deep snow, lungs burning, legs strong, the wind at your back. Not fleeing, not chasing, just moving. Free. When you wake, your cheeks are wet. Not from fear, from longing. Outside, the world is still. No tracks near the door. No scat. No sign. Just snow, wind, cold, and somewhere, far off, the memory of a howl, fading into the endless white. You melt snow for water. Eat your quarter biscuit. Check your logs. And carry on, because the wolf did not take you. And neither has the cold. Not today. You notice it first in the morning. Not the absence of cold that is constant, but the absence of your body's reply to it. You wake as usual before false dawn, breath fogging the air inside your hood, joints stiff from hours of stillness. But something is missing. The familiar tremor in your shoulders, the chattering of your teeth, the rhythmic shiver that once ran up your spine like a warning bell. It's gone. Not because you're warm. You are not warm. Your fingers are still numb. Your toes ache with that deep, hollow throb, and your breath still crystallizes on your scarf within seconds. But your body has stopped fighting. Shivering burns calories, and calories are gone. You understand what this means. Not as theory, but as fact, like snow falling or wind shifting. Your metabolism has slowed to preserve what little energy remains. Heat production is no longer a priority. Survival now depends on stillness, not resistance. You do not panic. Panic is fire, and you have no fuel left to burn. Instead, you sit very still, wrapped in every layer you own, knees drawn to your chest, chin tucked low. You monitor your breath, slow, shallow, even. Good. Rapid breathing wastes heat. You check your pulse at your neck, steady, though slower than before. Acceptable. This is not the end, but it is a threshold. You've read accounts, old trapper journals, exile memoirs, of men who reached this point and simply lay down, saying, I'm too tired to be cold anymore. You understand that now. The exhaustion isn't just in your limbs. It's in your bones, in your thoughts, in the space between heartbeats where we used to live. But you do not lie down. Not yet, because lying down makes rising harder. And rising is still necessary. Water must be melted. Fire must be tended. The world must be checked, however briefly, to confirm you are still in it. You move slowly, deliberately. Each action is weighed. Is this worth the energy? Melting snow? Yes. Checking the door flap? Yes. Walking to the snares? No. You've abandoned the snares entirely. Not out of hopelessness, but efficiency. They haven't yielded in weeks. And the walk costs more than any meal could repay. Better to conserve. Better to wait. Your hands are worse. The left is nearly useless. 3 fingers permanently curled, skin darkening at the tips. The right, though functional, moves with increasing stiffness. Fine motor tasks, tying knots, carving wood, even gripping your knife, now require concentration. You've begun using your teeth more, holding straps, tearing food, pulling knots tight. It feels animal, but animals survive. You eat standing again. Sitting takes too long to recover from. So you lean against the wall, chew your biscuit sliver with slow, grinding motions, and swallow without water if you can. Every drop of moisture must be earned through melted snow. And melting snow requires fire, and fire requires wood, and wood is down to 3 logs. You started sleeping in shifts, not by choice, by necessity. You nap for 20 minutes, wake to check your extremities, nap again. Deep sleep is dangerous now. In deep sleep, breathing slows further. Body temperature drops, And at minus 60 degrees Celsius, a few degrees is the difference between waking and not. So you hover at the edge of consciousness, dreaming lightly, waking often, listening to the wind, to your own breath, to the faint creak of your shelter settling under snow load. You've begun talking to your body again, not in full sentences, just murmurs, reassurances, almost time to melt snow, just a little longer. You've done this before. It helps, not because your body listens, but because the sound reminds you that you are still present, still choosing, still here. You check your reflection less often, not out of vanity, but because the face in a frost-rimmed wall is unfamiliar, hollow-cheeked, eyes sunken, beard matted with ice. You recognize the eyes barely, but the rest belongs to someone else, someone worn thin by cold and silence. That's all right. Faces don't keep you alive. Breath does, and your breath still comes. Slower now, shallower, but steady. You've stopped counting days entirely. Time is measured in other ways. How many times you've melted snow today? Twice. How many logs remain? 3. How many biscuit quarters left? 3. How many times you've woken without knowing where you were? Too many. These are your clocks now. Imprecise, fragile, but yours. You think less about rescue. Not because you've given up, but because the idea has lost its shape. Rescue implies a world that still sees you as worth reaching. Out here, you are becoming part of the landscape. Another shadow in the snow, another silence among trees. And yet, you melt snow. You feed the fire. You breathe. Because as long as you do, you're not gone. Not yet. The cold doesn't care whether you shiver. But you do. Because shivering meant fight. And its absence means something else. Not surrender, but acceptance. And in that acceptance, you find a strange kind of peace. Not warmth. Not safety. Just the quiet knowledge that you have lasted longer than most would have. And that, for now, is enough. Chewing is work now. Not the kind of work that builds muscle or earns coin, but the slow, grinding labor of a body running on fumes. Your jaw aches before you even begin. Your teeth feel loose, brittle, whether from scurvy, cold, or simple exhaustion. You can't say. All you know is that each bite of biscuit demands focus, energy, patience. You save your ration for midday, not because you're hungrier then. Hunger has long since settled into a constant hum, but because the weak sun offers a sliver of psychological warmth. You sit facing the light that seeps through the shelter's eastern crack. Unwrap your quarter biscuit with trembling fingers and hold it in your palm like an offering. It looks smaller than yesterday, or perhaps your hand is larger with swelling. Cold does that. Fluid pools in extremities, distorting shape, masking loss. You don't measure it. You simply break off a piece no bigger than your thumbnail and place it on your tongue. No chewing yet. Let saliva soften it first. Let your mouth remember what food feels like. The dry, gritty texture, the ghost of salt, the faint, stale sweetness of flour gone months without use. You close your eyes. Swirl it gently. Wait. After a minute, you begin to chew. Slowly, deliberately, jaw muscles protesting with every motion. You count 1, 2, 3 until the lump breaks down enough to swallow. No water. Not yet. Water comes after, reward for effort. Swallowing is its own trial. Your throat is dry, lined with dust from breath and frost. The bolus catches once, twice. You pause. Breathe. Try again. It slides down, heavy and reluctant. You rest. Not from fullness. You are far from full, but from fatigue. Eating has become an event, not a habit. A task that leaves you winded, forehead damp with sweat that freezes instantly on your skin. You think of meals past, not feasts. Simple things. A bowl of kasha steaming in a village kitchen. A slice of rye bread with butter melting into its pores. A cup of weak tea shared with a stranger at a crossroads inn. You remember the ease of it. All that nourishment taken in without thought, without cost. Now, every calorie must be earned. And even then, it may not stay. Twice this week, you vomited shortly after eating. Not from illness, but from a stomach too shrunken, too unused to solid food. Each time, you wept silently, not from pain, but from waste. That biscuit quarter was hours of survival, and it left your body in seconds. You've learned to eat slower, smaller pieces, longer pauses, but your body resists. Digestion requires heat, and heat requires fuel you no longer have. So your gut moves sluggishly, nutrients absorbed poorly, energy gained minimally. You eat not because it sustains you, but because stopping means surrender. You check your teeth often, running your tongue along the gum line, testing for looseness. One molar wiggles slightly when pressed. You avoid chewing on that side now. Another small adaptation. Another quiet withdrawal. Your hands make eating harder. The left is useless, fingers curled like claws, unable to hold anything. The right trembles, especially in the mornings. You've started using your knees to steady the biscuit, your chin to press it against your chest while breaking it apart. Dignity is gone. Only function remains. Sometimes, you let the biscuit dissolve entirely on your tongue. No chewing, no swallowing until it's liquid. It takes 20 minutes, but works. And on days when your jaw won't cooperate, it's the only way. You dream of soft foods, porridge, stewed apples, boiled turnips, anything that doesn't require force. In dreams, you spoon warm mash into your mouth, feel it coat your throat, spread warmth through your core. You wake with your mouth watering, stomach clenching with phantom hunger. Reality offers only hardtack, and hardtack demands strength you're losing. You've begun saving your best bites for last. Not the largest, the softest. The edge of the biscuit where moisture from your breath has softened it overnight. You save that morsel for the end. Let it linger on your tongue like a promise. You are still capable of pleasure, of sensation, of care. Water helps, but melting snow takes fire, and fire takes wood, and wood is down to 2 logs. So you ration water too, just enough to wet your mouth after eating, just enough to keep your throat from sealing shut. Dehydration dulls your mind, thickens your blood, worsens frostbite, but so does burning your last fuel. Balance is everything. You stop thinking in terms of meals. Now it's nourishment events, brief, focused acts of maintenance. You prepare mentally as if for a journey. Sit upright, clear your throat, unwrap the cloth, break the biscuit, breathe, begin. Afterward, you rest for an hour. Not sleeping, just sitting, eyes closed, letting your body do what little it can with what you've given it. You listen to your stomach gurgle, not with hunger, but with effort, with protest. You whisper thanks, not to God, not to fate, to your body, for trying, for enduring, for not giving up, even when the reward is so small. Some days, you skip the ration, not out of despair, but strategy. If you feel weaker than usual, if your hands shake violently, if your vision blurs upon standing, you save the biscuit for tomorrow. Better to fast one day than to waste precious calories your body can't process. It's a gamble, but survival is now a series of gambles wrapped in routine. You've carved a small notch in your knife handle for each day you eat. Not all days have notches, but most do. And that, you tell yourself, is something. Because as long as you're choosing to eat, even slowly, even painfully, you are choosing to stay. Not to live, but to remain present. To witness another dawn, however pale. Another breath, however shallow. Another bite, however hard one. It happens during a routine check. Not a storm, not deep snow. Just a shallow drift near the eastern wall of your shelter. Soft, wind-packed powder that looks solid enough to step on. You needed to inspect the door seal, test for new cracks, ensure the snow barrier hadn't shifted overnight. A task you've done 100 times. But this time, your left foot sinks deeper than expected. Not into water, there is none, but into a hidden pocket beneath the crust, where air and loose snow created a void. Your leg plunges to the knee. You jerk back instinctively, heart pounding, breath catching in your throat. The movement is too fast, too sharp, and your boot doesn't come with you. You stand there, barefoot buried in snow up to the ankle, staring at the hole where your boot vanished. For a moment, disbelief holds you still. Then cold, real, biting, immediate, shoots up your leg like a blade. You act without thought. Kneel, dig, claw through the powder with your good hand, ignoring the sting of frost on exposed skin. Snow fills your sleeve. Ice crystals bite your wrist. But you keep digging, frantic now, because you know, without that boot, you cannot walk. Without walking, you cannot gather wood. Without wood, you cannot melt snow. Without water, you die in days. Your fingers find leather. You pull. It resists, caught on something below. You dig wider, deeper, shoulder dipping into the drift, breath coming in short gasps. Finally, it comes free, but it's ruined. The seam has split completely. The inner lining, felt soaked with sweat and refrozen, is torn away. Worse, the sole is gone, ripped off by a hidden branch or stone beneath the snow. In your hand, you hold a sack of leather, useless against minus 60 degrees Celsius. You sit back on your heels. Breathe. Don't panic. Panic burns heat. Your bare foot is already numb. You pull it out slowly, cradle it against your chest inside your coat. Let your body warm it through layers of wool. You don't look at it. You don't need to. You know the damage is done. Even if you survive this exposure, frostbite is certain. You crawl back into the shelter. No standing. Not yet. Not with one bare foot and one failing boot. Inside, you wrap the injured foot in every spare scrap of dry cloth, moss hide, even a strip torn from your food sack. You tuck it under your armpit, press it to your core, and wait. Shivering returns, briefly. A final protest from your body before it shuts down again. You welcome it. Shivering means blood still flows. Means tissue might be saved. You check the other boot. The right one. Worn, cracked, but intact. You run your fingers along the sole, testing for weakness. It holds. For now. But you have only one good boot. And one foot that may never feel warmth again. Walking is no longer an option. Not beyond the shelter door. Every step would risk further injury, waste precious heat, destabilize your balance. You are tethered now, not by rope, but by necessity. Your world has shrunk to 10 paces in any direction. Beyond that lies death. You inventory what you can still do. Melt snow? Yes, if you keep the pot close. Tend fire? Yes, with careful movement. Check supplies? Yes, everything is within arm's reach. Hunt? No. Gather wood? No. Seek help? No. You are anchored, not by choice, but by consequence. You think of the postal route, still days away, even with 2 boots. Now, it might as well be across an ocean. You will not reach it, and no one will reach you. Not before your wood runs out. Not before your last biscuit turns to dust on your tongue. You do not despair. Despair is a luxury for those who still believe alternatives exist. You are past that. Now, there's only management. Only presence. Only the slow, quiet work of enduring as long as possible with what remains. You consider burning the ruined boot. Just the leather. Just enough to last one more night. But it would produce more smoke than flame, choke the shelter, waste the hide you might need for wrapping your injured foot. So you set aside. A relic. A warning. Your foot throbs now. Not with pain, but with pressure. Swelling. You unwrap it briefly. The toes are pale, waxy. No blanching when pressed. Superficial frostbite at best. Deep tissue loss at worst. You re-wrap it tightly, tuck it back into your coat, and lean against the wall. Balance is harder with one foot elevated. You adjust your posture, shift your weight, find a new way to sit that doesn't strain your core. Adaptation is constant now. Every hour brings a new limitation, a new calculation. You wonder how long you can last like this. Not walking, not hunting, not expanding your radius. Just melting snow, feeding embers, breathing. Perhaps weeks, perhaps days. It depends on wood, on water, on whether your good boot holds. You check it again. Yes, still intact. You whisper thanks, not for salvation, for delay. Outside, the wind picks up. Snow begins to fall. Light, dry flakes drifting through the trees. Beautiful, indifferent. You watch it through the crack in the wall. Your injured foot cradled close, your good hand resting on your knee. You are smaller now, not just in body, but in scope. Your ambitions have narrowed to a single point. Stay conscious until tomorrow. And if tomorrow brings no change, then the day after. And if the day after brings only silence, then you will have lasted longer than most. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to rest within the boundaries of what is possible. One boot, 1 foot, 1 breath at a time. Still here, still choosing, still waiting. It comes just after false dawn. A sound so faint you think you've imagined it. A single, high-pitched chime, metal on metal, carried on a gust of wind from the west. It lasts less than a second. Then silence returns, deeper than before. You freeze, not from cold, from stillness. Your breath stops mid-inhale. Your hands, resting on your knees, go rigid. Even your thoughts seem to pause, as if afraid to move too loudly and scare the sound away. Did you hear that? You wait, ears straining against the quiet, heart pounding not with hope, but with caution. Because hope is dangerous now. Hope burns energy. Hope makes you stand when you should stay seated. Hope makes you walk toward sounds that may not be real. But you listen. The wind shifts. Snow sighs through the larch branches. A branch cracks under its own weight. Normal sounds. Expected sounds. Then there it is again. Fader this time. Or perhaps your mind is filling in what it wants to hear. A tiny, distant tink, like a sledge bell wrapped in cloth to muffle its call. You've heard them before. On postal routes, on trader convoys, even on reindeer herds guided by Venki hunters. Small brass bells tied to harnesses, ringing softly with each step. But this is winter, deep winter. No one travels at minus 60 degrees Celsius unless they must. And those who must do not ring bells. They move quietly, conserving energy, avoiding attention from wolves or bandits or the land itself. So why would bells sound now? You consider possibilities. A mirage of sound. Wind vibrating a frozen branch. Ice cracking on a distant river. Your own pulse echoing in your ears. These things happen. The cold plays tricks. Silence stretches until your mind invents company. Or someone is out there. Not rescue. Not salvation. But another human being moving through the white, perhaps lost like you, perhaps searching, perhaps simply passing through on a route you didn't know existed. You do not rise. Not yet. Standing costs heat. And if the sound doesn't come again, standing was wasted effort. So you stay seated, back against the wall, injured foot tucked close, good hand resting lightly on your knife. You count the seconds. 30, 60, 90, nothing. Then a third chime. Clearer this time. Closer? Or just the wind favoring your ear for a moment. You can't tell, but it's enough to make your chest tighten, not with joy, but with decision. What do? Shout? Your voice is hoarse, weak. It wouldn't carry far, and shouting wastes moisture, burns calories, risks drawing unwanted attention. Step outside, with one bare foot wrapped in rags and one failing boot. You'd sink into the snow, lose balance, possibly injure yourself further. And for what? A sound that may already be gone? Light a signal fire? You have 2 logs left. Burning one now might mean no water tomorrow. No warmth tonight. Is a chance worth certain loss? You weigh it. Not emotionally. Logically. If someone is coming, they'll see smoke. If not, you've hastened your end for a phantom. You decide to wait. Not passively. Actively. You press your ear to the shelter wall again, listening past the wind, past your own breath, past the blood rushing in your ears. You scan the western ridge through the crack in the wall, eyes searching for movement, for smoke, for the glint of metal on harness leather. Minutes pass. The sun, pale and low, brushes the horizon. Light spills across the snow, turning it blue-gold for 17 minutes. In that light, the world looks almost kind, almost survivable. But no sledge appears. No figure trudges through the drifts. No dogs bark in the distance. Just snow, wind, cold, and the memory of a bell. You wonder if you dreamed it. Not in sleep, in waking hallucination. The mind, starved of stimulus, creates echoes of what it longs for. You've heard of men calling out to wives who died years ago, seeing villages in empty taiga, following voices that lead them off cliffs. Is this the beginning of that? Or was it real? You'll never know. And that is the cruelest part. Not the cold, not the hunger, not even the lost boot, but the uncertainty, the not knowing whether help was near, or whether your own mind has begun to fray at the edges, weaving comfort from wind and wishful thinking. You sit back, breathe slowly, Let the moment pass. Because whether the bell was real or not, your reality remains unchanged. 2 logs, 2 biscuit quarters, 1 good boot, 1 foot fading into numbness. You melt snow, feed the fire, wrap your injured foot tighter, and carry on. Not because you believe rescue is coming, but because stopping means the bell, real or imagined, wins. And you're not ready to let sound replace substance. Not yet. So you listen, but you do not hope. You endure. And in the vast white silence, that is enough. You know the calendar, even if you no longer mark it. Deep winter, January's grip at its strongest. The solstice has passed, yes. The days are technically lengthening. But here, in the heart of Siberia, that change is invisible. The sun still brushes the horizon for less than an hour. The rivers remain locked in ice 2 meters thick. The permafrost lies unbroken beneath your feet. Spring is not coming soon. Not in weeks. Not even in months. And yet, you prepare for it. Not with hope. Not with expectation. But with habit. With the quiet discipline of a body that has survived this long, by assuming tomorrow will require something of you. Each morning, you check your gear as if departure were imminent. You smooth the wrinkles from your coat, though it offers no more warmth than before. You tighten the wrap around your injured foot, testing for new swelling. You sharpen your knife, not because you'll hunt, but because a sharp blade is useful for carving, for cutting sinew, for prying eyes from the water pot. You lay out your remaining supplies in order. The last 2 biscuit quarters wrapped in oiled cloth. The water pot, half filled with melted snow. The 2 logs split into kindling to stretch their life. Your knife, your needle, your bone hook for snares, and used but kept ready. It's a ritual without purpose. And that's all right. Purpose is a luxury for those with futures. You have only presence. And presence must be tended like a fire. You've begun imagining spring. Not vividly, not desperately, but in fragments, like half-remembered dreams. You picture the first trickle of meltwater running down the shelter wall. The sound of ice cracking on the river. A deep, groaning sigh as the frozen skin splits open. The smell of wet earth after months of snow. The sight of green shoots pushing through ash and moss. These images do not comfort you. They remind you of what you may never see again. But you hold them anyway, because imagination is one of the last things the cold cannot take. You think of walking again. Not now with 1 bare foot and 1 failing boot, but someday, when the snow softens, when your body remembers strength, when the world becomes navigable once more. You rehearse the motion in your mind, lifting your foot, placing it down, shifting weight, stepping forward. Simple, automatic, impossible right now, but you practice it in thought, because if your body forgets how to walk, survival ends the moment the snow melts. You check your good boot daily. The leather is cracked along the heel, the stitching frayed at the toe. You rub moose fat into it when you can spare the scrap, preserving what little remains. It won't last until spring, but it might last another week. And another week is all you ask for. You've stopped wondering whether you'll live to see thaw. The question no longer matters. What matters is whether you wake each morning and tend your small domain, fire, water, breath. Whether you resist the pull of lethargy that whispers, lie down. Close your eyes. Let go. You do not let go. Not because you expect reward, but because letting go feels like betrayal of the self who walked here, of the sister who waits, or doesn't, of the simple fact that you have lasted this long. You begun talking to spring, quietly, evenly, as if it were a person who might listen. I know you're far, you say one morning while melting snow, but I'm still here. No answer comes. Of course not. Spring does not care. It arrives when physics allows, not when humans plead. But you say it anyway, because speaking it makes it real, not as promise, but as possibility. And possibility, however faint, is a kind of fuel. You ration your final log carefully, splitting it into slivers no thicker than your finger, burning one every other night. On off nights, you sit in darkness, wrapped in every layer, breathing shallowly, listening to your own pulse. You survive. Barely, but you survive. Your body grows quieter, less shivering. Less hunger, less pain, not because conditions improve, but because your systems are conserving everything for core function. You move slower, think slower. Even blinking takes effort. This is not weakness. This is endurance refined to its essence. You're no longer fighting the cold. You are coexisting with it, like a stone in a river, worn smooth but still present. Sometimes you imagine yourself found in spring, not by rescuers, just by chance, a trapper following wolf tracks, a surveyor marking new routes. They'd find your shelter buried under snow melt, your bones curled near the hearth, your knife still sharp, your last biscuit untouched. Would they understand? That you didn't die from lack of will, but from a sheer, indifferent weight of minus 60 degrees Celsius and solitude? Probably not, but you don't need them to. You know, and that is enough. So you prepare for spring, not because you believe you'll reach it, but because preparing is how you say, I am still here. I have not surrendered. I am waiting, even if only for the cold to decide. Outside, the wind rises. Snow falls softly, covering old tracks, smoothing the land in a blankness once more. You watch it through the crack in the wall, and you think, let it bury everything. I will still be here when it melts. Or if not, then I lasted longer than most. And that too is enough. You wake one morning and realize you've survived another week. Not because you mark the days, no notches, no stones, no sunrises counted, but because your body tells you so. The rhythm of depletion has slowed. Your breath comes easier. Your thoughts, though still wrapped in fog, hold shape longer before dissolving. You sit up without dizziness. Your good hand steadies itself on the wall without trembling. These are small things, but in deep winter, small things are everything. You do not celebrate. There is no energy for celebration, no bread to break, no fire to brighten, no voice to raise in thanks. You simply note the fact as you would note that the water pot is half full or that the wind has shifted east. I'm still here. And that is enough. You check your foot first. Still numb, still wrapped in layers of hide and moss. But no worse. No blackening at the toes. No swelling spreading up the ankle. It is what it is. A burden, not a crisis. You tuck it back under your coat, press it to your core, and let your body's warmth seep into it as best it can. Your boot remains intact. The leather is stiff, the sole thinning, but it holds. You flex your good foot inside it, testing balance. It answers, not strongly, but faithfully. That is all you ask. You melt snow. Not much, just enough for 2 sips. Water is life, but boiling it costs wood, and wood is down to 1 log, split into 6 slivers. You burn one every 3rd night now. On the others, you sit in darkness, listening to your own breath, counting heartbeats to stay present. Today is a fire day. You feed a sliver to the embers. Watch it catch. Watch the flame rise, thin, blue at the base, orange at the tip, then settle into steady heat. You place the pot near it, nod over, and wait. While you wait, you think of nothing. Not rescue, not spring, not even your sister's face. Just the sound of melting ice, the hiss of vapor rising, the soft crackle of burning larch. These sounds are enough. They say, time is passing. You are in it. When the water is warm enough to drink without freezing your throat, you sip slowly. Let coat your mouth. Swallow once. Rest. Swallow again. 2 sips. That is your ration. You eat nothing today. Not because you've run out, you still have 1 biscuit quarter, but because your stomach feels tight, resistant. Eating would cost more than it gives. So you save it. For tomorrow, or the next day, or whenever your body signals it can manage. You've learned to trust those signals. Not hunger. That is constant, but the deeper sense of readiness. When your jaw unclenches. When your throat stops feeling sealed shut. When your hand stops shaking long enough to hold food. That time will come. And when it does, you'll eat. Until then, you tend what remains. You sharpen your knife again, though it doesn't need it. The motion is calming. Methodical. It says, I am still capable. I still care for my tools. You check the door flap. Snow has drifted against it overnight, sealing gaps, adding insulation. Good. The cold outside is minus 59 degrees Celsius this morning, You check the thermometer out of habit, but inside, it feels almost stable. Not warm, never warm, but survivable. You wonder how long survivable can last. Not in despair, in curiosity, because you've passed the point where survival is about strength. Now it's about patience, about letting the cold take what it will, fingers, toes, muscle, memory, and holding onto the core, breath, thought, presence. You think of others who walk this land. Exiles chained to carts, traders lost in blizzards, hunters who followed reindeer too far north. Some made it back. Most did not. Their bones lie beneath the snow, their names forgotten, their stories untold. You will likely join them, and that is all right, because you have lasted longer than many would have. You have faced the white without flinching. You have listened to wolves howl and bells chime and your own body grow quiet. And still, you wake. Still, you melt snow. Still, you feed the fire. Still, you choose, however faintly, to remain. Outside, the weak sun touches the horizon. 17 minutes of pale light spill across the snow, turning it gold blue, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers toward your shelter. You watch it through the crack in the wall. No warmth comes, but light does, and light is a kind of company. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to rest within the knowledge that you are still here, small, fragile, enduring, against the endless white. No triumph, no drama, just continuation. And in this place, that is the truest form of courage. You're still listening. That means you've stayed with this story through hours of cold, silence, waiting, through frostbitten fingers, dwindling wood, phantom bells, and the slow erosion of a body pushed to its limits. And if your eyes close for a while, that's all right. The cold doesn't hurry. Neither did we. This is how survival often ends. Not with fanfare, not with rescue, not even with death, but with continuation. With waking one more morning and choosing, however quietly, to melt snow, to feed the fire, to breathe. No medals were given to those who endured Siberian winters alone. No songs were sung about the exiles who vanished into the white, or the trappers whose bones were found curled beside cold hearths. Their names faded like footprints in fresh snow. Their stories survived only in fragments. A knife handle carved with dates, a boot left half-buried in drifts, a shelter reclaimed by wind and time. And yet, they mattered. Not because they conquered the cold. No one does, but because they faced it without illusion. They knew the land was indifferent, that rescue was unlikely, that every choice carried cost. And still, they persisted. Not heroically, not dramatically, but steadily, daily, in the small, unrecorded acts of tending fire, checking extremities, whispering a sister's name into the frost. That is the quiet truth of extreme survival. It is not about winning. It is about refusing for one more hour to let go. Today, you do not face minus 60 degrees Celsius alone in a snow shelter. You are warm, safe, connected. If you feel cold, you turn up the heat. If you hunger, you open a cupboard. If you're lost, your phone shows the way. These are not small comforts. They are miracles of modern life, built on centuries of knowledge, infrastructure, and collective care that most never see, let alone appreciate. But it is good to remember what lies beneath that safety. The fragility of the human body. The thin line between warmth and stillness. The fact that, without tools, community, and shelter, we are as vulnerable as any creature in the wild. This story was not meant to frighten you. It was meant to honor those who walk the edge and to remind you, gently, of the warmth you carry simply by being here, now, listening in safety. Some who went into the Siberian winter returned. Gaunt, silent, haunted, but alive. They rarely spoke of what they'd seen, not out of secrecy, but because words couldn't hold it. How do you describe a silence so deep it reshapes your mind? A cold so absolute it makes breath feel like glass? A loneliness so complete it becomes a companion? Most survivors simply lived quieter afterward. They listened more, wasted less, held their loved ones longer. They knew, in their bones, how easily the world could become vast and white again. As for the others, the ones who did not rise when names were called, They're not forgotten, not by the land. The taiga remembers every footprint. The rivers carry every whispered prayer. The snow preserves what it takes, not as tragedy, but as fact. And in that preservation, there is dignity. Because to endure, even briefly, in such indifference that is human. Now, outside your window, the night is soft. Perhaps there is snow falling where you are. Perhaps rain. Perhaps stars. Whatever it is kinder than Siberian winter. Let that kindness sink into you. Let your shoulders relax. Let your breath deepen. You do not need to stay awake for this story anymore. It has done its work. The wind still blows across the taiga. The rivers still sleep under ice. The cold remains, patient and eternal. But here, with you, it is warm. And that is enough. Thank you for listening to Sleepy Historian. If this story carried you through the night, even in fragments, you honored those who walked the white by remembering them, however briefly. Rest now. You are safe. And somewhere, far away, the snow continues to fall silently, endlessly, beautifully.